Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for being here today. We are delighted to have you join us for today's town hall with administrative leaders of UW-Madison. I'm Stephanie Benson-Gonzalez with UW's Parent and Family Program. I'll be moderating today's panel and sharing your questions with our panelists. We know we have a lot of information to cover, and we are excited to share our plans with you. The bulk of our plans are detailed on our Smart Restart website, which is evolving almost hourly as questions are asked and answered. You can visit www.smartrestart.wisc.edu as your best source of up-to-date information on our reopening plans. For today, however, if you have a question you'd like to ask, you can submit it as a comment on this video, and I'll share it with our panelists. I want to let you know that this presentation is being captioned. That link is listed in the description window under the video panel on this YouTube page. So now I'll turn it over to today's panelists, starting with our Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Carl Schultz.
Well, thank all of you for joining us today. I've been at this university for over 30 years. I've absolutely grown to love the place. It's a magnificent institution. Some rankings just came out in the last month or two from the Center for World University Rankings, a very well-respected international ranking organization. They say UW-Madison is the 26th best university in the world. It's a remarkable place. There's good reasons for that. Our average time to degree is now under 4 years. We're down to 3.96 years for average time to degree. Our 6-year graduation rate is among the top 10 public universities in the country, an envy of every university in the world. And we've really invested heavily in programs that enhance the educational experience, whether these are the high impact practices like undergraduate research scholars, community-based learning, study abroad, residential learning communities. And our program, our first year interest group program, has been recognized by U.S. News as one of the stellar examples of learning communities around the country. And that all combines to provide an education that I would argue is second to none. And that happens because we have great people. Everyone understands great people fuel great organizations. And people at UW-Madison share a vision, are inspired by the people who helped us get to where we are today. And my colleagues roll up their sleeves to do what it takes to compete with the finest institutions in the world. And my colleagues who've joined me today and other colleagues get tired of me saying this, but we compete with the finest institutions of the world with sometimes it feels like baling wire, bubble gum, and duct tape. But the fact that we're successful in that is one of the things that I'm most proud about. So, as I said, I'm very, very grateful for everyone to join us today. You probably didn't join us to hear about how great UW-Madison is, but you're very much on what's on everyone's mind is COVID-19 and the pandemic and what is happening in the fall. So, UW-Madison will be ready to welcome students back to campus this fall. For the past several months, a dedicated team with representatives from across the campus, staff, students, faculty, and even administrators have been working on our reopening plans, which we're calling Smart Restart. This work is going to continue through the summer. Our top priorities are clear, and that is to keep our community healthy and continuing to provide a world-class educational experience. We're following public health guidance that you're going to hear about momentarily, and we're going to use protective measures such as face coverings, physical distancing, cleaning, and regular testing to ensure that the community, we have minimized the risks facing our communities. While many classes will be offered in person, we're also going to use remote instruction, including for students not able to be on campus. The hybrid approach allows us to be flexible and to support our students, faculty, and staff. Last week, the Chancellor announced, as you know, our reopening plans that we have called Smart Restart, but that's just the beginning. It requires us to change virtually every aspect of our operations, and we continue to update as we get additional public health guidance and we learn more about our plans. So we're very, very excited about the opening of campus this fall. We have a lot to tell you about, but let me introduce my colleagues who are with me today. So we're joined by the Executive Director of the University Health Service, Jake Baggett, and for our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Lori Reesor. I'm going to start by calling on Jake, who's going to give us further details on our plans for public health and safety. Jake, take it away.
Thank you, Provost. And as you had shared, maintaining the health and safety of our campus is clearly our #1 priority, in addition to offering just a phenomenal educational experience. So we've got in place, as you become accustomed to in many places, the public health recommendations around face covering, social or physical distancing, really strategic cleaning protocols. But in addition to that, testing is really an important part of our overall strategy. We need to be able to identify an infection early and prevent it from spreading wherever possible. And so we've got a 3-part plan really to support that goal. First, there's going to be a drop-in testing centers on campus that will be free and available to essentially anyone on campus who would need or feel like they should be tested. That test will be unlimited and be available, in various parts of the campus for the convenience. And then, secondly, we're going to launch a surveillance testing strategy that really represents the entire campus. That means that there will be members of the campus that will be cohorts that will be asked to voluntarily join on a regular basis to be tested, so that we can identify early in other ways when the virus might be spreading, so that we can adjust whatever public health protocols that are warranted. And then finally, there will be targeted testing, in particular for groups that are that might be considered special duties of care. For example, our students and staff in our residence halls and our dining facilities will be offered regular testing throughout the semester on an ongoing basis. So we think that these layered strategies, in addition to the other public health strategies that we talked about before, are going to provide as safe an environment as anyone could provide, while they're here on campus, and actually and be prepared to support them if we should have any tests that turn positive we need to support the students with. Carl, I'm going to return it to you for some additional remarks on instruction.
So we're excited about starting on September 2nd with a full curriculum that's going to be a mix of in-person and remote. So for instance, we don't think that we can conduct classes, for example, with over 100 students. Say, I'm an economics professor, so introductory economics, 400 students, not going to work to be in person. So lectures would be delivered remotely, but for students who are on campus, they can have discussion sections in person. So there'll be a mix of in-person and remote instruction. For classes that are smaller, we likely will try to do many of those in person. We want to also serve students who, for one reason, are either unable or unwilling to come to campus because of health concern. And so students in every major will have classes available to them fully remotely so that they can make progress towards degree should they wish to do so. We will continue for our in-person classes up to Thanksgiving, and then hold the last 9 class days following Thanksgiving remotely. And the reasoning there is that at the Thanksgiving holiday, students going to leave, go to all parts of the country or world, then possibly come back. We fear that the risks of significant spread of the coronavirus is unusually high. And so we're planning on instruction from in-person instruction from September 2nd to Thanksgiving, and then the remaining part of the semester being done remotely. Jake covered the steps that we're taking to minimize risk. That is around testing, contact tracing, cleaning, face covering, and physical distancing. That's the 5-part plan to keep staff and faculty to minimize risk. Students, we're having to change the calendar, right? Because another important part of what we're doing is what I'm calling de-densifying our classrooms. And so we want to make sure that we have physical distancing in all of our instructional spaces. And so that means a classroom that might be able to, in normal times, accommodate 40 students, might be able to only accommodate 10 to 15 students. That means we're having to reschedule classes. That means we're going to extend the timetable so that classes may very well go from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night, Monday through Thursday, up until sundown on Friday. We may even be holding some Saturday classes. That means for our returning students, which is our group that we're talking about today, we'll likely have to re-register for courses once we establish when classes are being offered and what's their modality. We'll allow students then to re-register and then re-register again if needed. That will happen around mid-July. Now, we encourage our students to reach out to their academic advisors for support and specific guidance. As I mentioned before, we want to make options available in every undergraduate major for remote learning, but not every course will have a fully remote option, as you can appreciate. We're investing heavily in additional technology and training to make sure that virtual classes are delivered at a high level of quality. All of you went through the spring where in a 12-day period, we had to convert courses to a virtual format. In some cases, that went very well. In some cases, that went less than the level or quality that we expect of UW-Madison. We've had more time, and we're pursuing this much more purposefully now. Supporting our students' academic progress and success continues to be our top priority. And so instructors are going to continue to hold high academic standards and expectations of all students, both for in-person and remote instruction, while communicating additional flexibilities for those who may become ill or quarantined. I purposely kept my remarks very brief, but I'm going to be happy to answer questions after Lori has made her remarks. And so now I'd like to turn it to the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Lori Reesor.
Hi, everybody. We're so glad that you joined us today. And we know that the last few months have really been difficult for all of us, but we're grateful that you've chosen UW-Madison, and I'm grateful that you'll be a part of this journey with all of us. We know that the success of this Smart Restart plan really depends on the expectations that every member of our Badger community will keep our campus safe and healthy. And I believe, and we all believe, that our parents are partners in this situation, and we're going to need your partnership even more than ever as we navigate this ongoing pandemic. So we hope that you'll discuss our expectations with your students, that you'll help us model this behavior and keep checking in with them as they transition to this new normal. We know it's not going to be easy for our students. It's not going to be easy for any of us. The last few months haven't been easy for any of us. But the only way that we're going to be successful and can keep our community safe is if everyone in this community honors the guidelines that we've set forth. Now, we have lots of questions from students about, so what else is going to be going on campus? And yes, we are going to have student life activities, but honestly, the most important piece for us will be our academics. And because of the having to de-densify the classes, we know we're going to have to use a lot of our student activity space to even offer courses in. But that doesn't mean that we're not still committed to our student life experience. We know a lot of our student organizations will still continue to meet. We know that we hope to be able to offer opportunities for our students to still work out in safe ways and in de-densified ways. So there'll be a lot of commitment to still trying to keep some quality of student life for our students, and a lot of it will probably be in a hybrid option. And then finally, my last comment is just really about the general safety and health and wellness of our students, especially in their mental health. We know that there could be extra stress and extra worry and extra anxiety in navigating this new space. So we have full, amazing services here at UW that will continue to be open, if possible, in person, or certainly for some virtual spaces. So again, our university health services will be available. The Dean of Students offices will be available. For parents, if you need to contact the parent and family programs, that staff will be there. So we'll all be here to support you and your student as we go through this journey together.
Thanks to you all for sharing a little bit about the landscape. I know there's a lot that goes into our decisions and our processes. And so I also just want to welcome, if anyone's just joining us now, thanks for being here and taking time. If you're here, it means that you support a student, care about a student, and we share that feeling and are here to help get your questions answered today. Also, if you are just joining, or maybe you have a friend or family member who couldn't be with us, this recording will be available. So our session today is recorded, and at the same link, you can rewatch it or share it with a friend or family member afterwards. So just thinking a little bit about decision-making and some of those complexities, one question, Provost, I'm wondering if you could talk about is related to the academic calendar. So we often hear from parents and families who might be following the news or have students at other institutions about earlier or altered start dates. Can you talk about our decision to begin on September 2nd and kind of how we came to that point?
Sure. One of the great things about being at UW-Madison is that we are a state agency. And so the state is very involved, generally in an extremely positive way, in what we do at the university. And so September 2nd is actually in state legislation, and it is the earliest possible start date at UW-Madison. And we wanted to get started as early as we can to get as much of the semester done before the Thanksgiving holidays. And so that's why we'll get nearly 13 weeks of the semester done between September 2nd and Thanksgiving. We gently probed the possibility of actually starting earlier than that, but that proved it would take state legislation to do it, and that proved to be impossible to execute in the time that we had. And so we chose September 2nd as the earliest possible start date to get as much of the curriculum done in person when feasible as possible.
That's helpful. I'm wondering if I could turn it over to you, Vice Chancellor Reesor, and just, you brought up a really good point about seeing parents and families as partners, right? We all have this shared goal of student success. So with that in mind, for our parents and families watching, what should they be thinking about or doing right now to help their students prepare for the start of the fall semester?
Yeah, we know it's not going to be the same. And so I think part of it is really helping them manage their expectations and thinking about what that's going to really look like. It's really hard to imagine for our students that they're going to wear face coverings all the time, except obviously when they're in the privacy of their own residence hall or when they're in the privacy of their own home. But if they're in class, if they're on campus, if they're walking to class, it really is going to be important to wear that face mask, because it obviously not only protects them, but it's going to protect their community. And that's the overall goal, is that we keep everybody safe and healthy. So just thinking about what that's going to look like and how people are going to make good decisions about those things are really important as well. And then, of course, for new students, we hope that you're signed up for SOAR and encourage parents to be a part of the SOAR family program as well. We have a great program that gives you lots of information. Now, a lot of this happened before we knew some of the information about COVID, so there's not going to be a lot of specifics. That's where you'll want to stay in touch with the Parent Family Program website, with the Smart Restart website that Stephanie mentioned earlier. That's where all of our current updates will be, so that everybody knows what's going on and how to connect with different pieces of information. But I think a lot of it is just really helping manage those expectations and managing stress, learning in a more virtual environment. They had some experience of that if they just were in high school. They had some experience with that this spring. But again, all of those things are new and different. So again, making sure students take advantage of our resources and the services that we have available for them on campus, and then listening to them. And then if you have concerns, then to reach out to us as well, so that together we can help support our students.
Thanks. Turning this next one over to you, Jake, and thinking about your perspective from University Health Services, and then Dr. Reesor too, if you want to contribute or have any thoughts on this one, please feel free to add. Wondering, Jake, starting with you, how will students be cared for who may test positive for COVID-19? What would that look like if a student's living in the university residence halls, or perhaps what might that look like if they're living in off-campus housing or they're part of our Greek community?
Thank you, Stephanie. That's a really important question. So in all the work and the preparation that we've been doing, one of the things that we've established are spaces here on campus that residents who may become tested positive can be relocated so they can be isolated appropriately and supported during that period of time. So we have some capacity with private rooms and private restrooms where students can be relocated. And then at that point, there will be a contacting tracing process that's also put in place in cooperation with the public health department. The University Health Services and staff will work to follow up and identify anybody that may have been exposed to make sure that they're doing well and support them appropriately. Students that are in the in those isolation spaces will continue to be supported by both housing and the University Health Services in terms of regular checkups and support for their well-being throughout that period of time until they're cleared to return to the campus. And then there are also been arrangements to help support them so they can continue their academic work while that's going on as well. Students who live in the community will also have similar supports. In most cases, they'll be able to isolate within their existing residence halls, and in some cases they may actually be able to return home if they live relatively close by. But in either case, University Health Services will continue to follow up with them on a daily basis and help guide them in their effort during that period of time to support them until they can also be returned, cleared to return back to the campus activities or otherwise. So you'll have a wide range of services available to support you during while you're here, if for some reason you should test positive. So that's an overview of that. Lori, you may want to add to that.
We know a number of our students may choose to live in our fraternities and sororities, and we're working really, really closely. Those are private organizations and private houses. And so just like our apartments, they make their own decisions, but we're working with them so that to encourage them to follow the same guidelines as we're holding for our other students. So we're working with the national organizations, we're working with the local housing corporation to help keep our students as safe as possible. So for parents or students who are living in those organizations, then we certainly encourage you to contact them more specifically. But we are asking for them to follow the same guidelines because we all care in the same way about our students. We want them to be safe. We want to make sure that they're making really good decisions. So we'll be working really, really closely specifically with our fraternities and sororities.
Thanks, everyone. That's really helpful. I know for our families and our students, nothing's more important than their safety and well-being, as you've mentioned. And Jake, related to that, I was wondering if you could just add a little bit about our process in regards to contact tracing.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yes, we have a very robust contact tracing strategy in place, and we'll be prepared to expand that as necessary to support students. So contact tracing, when we identify a case that's positive, there will be public health officials that will follow up with that individual and identify where somebody may have intersected with others on campus and to identify whether or not there's any added risk or need to support those students or ask them to be tested if necessary. And then there will be follow-up with them. In all cases, anybody that's been exposed to somebody potentially will be supported in asking them to self-monitor. We'll provide the tools and the supports to support them during that process as well. So we'll have a very robust contact tracing staff and program in place so that we can respond very quickly and support students during that period of time. We all know from their experiences and what we're hearing with others that having that in place is going to be important to the overall health and well-being of our campus community, and we will be ready for that.
Thanks, Jake. Those details are helpful. Wondering if we can shift a little bit, and Vice Chancellor Reesor, I'll start with you, and then Provost Schultz, if you want to add in, please feel free. Thinking about our international community and maybe some of the unknowns right now around travel, coming to campus, I'm wondering if you could speak to what international families should keep in mind, what are maybe some key points that we can share with them right now, and then will those students be able to take classes remotely, or is there anything else they should consider as it relates to instruction?
Yeah, no, we really are sensitive to the challenges that a number of our international students are dealing with. They A number of them are living in Madison already, obviously, if they are current students, and so that's a little bit easier for them. We are watching federal guidelines and expectations about travel, about visa rules, and so again, a number of those things are still in flux, and we appreciate the extra challenge and stress that is creating for a number of our families. But we're doing everything we can. We know how important international students are to our community. We value the contributions that they make and the gifts that they bring to all of us by being a part of the UW-Madison community. And so we know things are continuously changing in that space. We're doing everything we can, if they can't be here, to provide remote and online learning for them as well. But again, a lot of things are still in flux with the federal government and with travel. And so we know that that could mean even some last minute changes, and really encourage our students to contact the International Student Services Office for any questions. We're doing our best to get back to everybody as quickly as possible. But again, we know it's hard because a lot of things are still up in the air and are going to take a little bit longer to get resolved. But just to continue to be patient with us, and we'll do everything that we can to help answer those questions as quickly as possible. Carl, do you want to add a little bit more about the instruction for our students?
Oh, I think you nailed it, Lori. I mean, we're going to try to have a portfolio of courses that will serve students who are unable or unwilling to come to campus. There are certain restrictions in some countries about how many courses a student who's living in a different country is allowed to take remotely. And so we try to work with higher ed lobbying organizations to relax those restrictions in a period of the COVID crisis. But otherwise, what Vice Chancellor Reesor said is exactly what I would have said.
Thank you so much. Jake, I'm actually wondering if I could also ask an additional question to you as it relates to, we're hearing from international families, hey, my student came home, but they may choose to travel back to Madison, and kind of thinking about the health guidelines that you outlined. Is the expectation for students returning to the United States to quarantine upon arrival, whether they're coming internationally or perhaps they're coming from high spread areas domestically?
Yeah, so there's no formal requirement to quarantine per se, but what is important is that our students and anybody who travels internationally pay close attention to their health and well-being and monitor for the symptoms that might indicate whether or not they may have been exposed to COVID. And also for them to understand how readily available testing is should symptoms develop, so we can confirm whether or not that they need additional support. One of the things that we're really grateful for is our close working relationship with the county health department, and the work that we've done to establish really is a well-supported environment here in Madison and on the UW campus. And as a result of that, the positive rates here locally have really been below some of the national levels experienced in other places. So we're going to continue to really reinforce those measures and support those. So again, people traveling from other parts of the country or even internationally, we would work with you to support you in monitoring those symptoms and getting you to testing quickly if that be necessary.
Great. Thanks so much, Jake, for that additional information. If you're just joining us, welcome. If you've been here since the start, congratulations. We are halfway through our time together. I just want to recognize that we know we won't be able to answer all of your questions within this 1 hour time frame. We do hope that the context that we can provide shares a little bit about our decision-making and thought processes. I just want to share, if your question isn't answered, it's still so valuable to us. So thank you. Keep adding to those comments. We'll return to those comments, we'll review them, and we'll stay in close communication with you throughout the summer and beyond. And we'll look to your questions to help us inform you and keep you up to date. And again, check out the latest at our Smart Restart website. You can visit that link at www.smartrestart.wisc.edu. Or you can email our office, the Parent and Family Program, and you can email us at parent@uwmad.wisc.edu. So thanks again. We're about halfway through. I'm wondering if we can shift a little bit to academics. And Provost, I'm wondering if I could have you take this one. could you talk through a little bit about how instruction will work this fall? So for example, are classes delivered at the same time, or are they in real time? What are remote classes actually like for students who will be taking them?
Great question, Stephanie. So remote classes will be a mixture of what we call synchronous and asynchronous instruction. And so synchronous exchange, for those of you who are listening to us live right now, we are engaging in synchronous conversation or synchronous discussion. For those who watch webinars, when this goes viral maybe, that would be an asynchronous mode of instruction. And a considerable amount of our instruction will be asynchronous simply by the fact that our students are distributed around the world. And so a noon class in Madison might be very convenient, but a whole lot less convenient for a student studying in Germany or South Korea or somewhere else around the world. And so there'll be, like, our classes will be a mixture. But one thing that we've learned during the early months of the pandemic is one of the most challenging aspects is the isolating aspects of pandemics, that we're working in our homes, and maybe we're interacting with our families or cats and dogs and things, but we're missing that interaction with others. And one of the ways that happens in the classroom, of course, is through discussion. And one of the best ways to do discussion is through synchronous exchanges. So even for classes that are set up to be delivered asynchronously, we are working hard when appropriate to develop the opportunity to have synchronous interaction to try to foster that learning community and facilitate learning not just from our instructors, but from other students in the class. And so, so there'll be a mixture, again, of synchronous and asynchronous instruction, a lot of it in an asynchronous form, but working hard to develop, to create discussion, to create interactions. Even for our classes, let's say I use the introductory economics class as an example. Even for that class, when the main lecture material might be delivered asynchronously, so students can pick it up at their leisure, at their convenience, we are committed to having discussion sections both in person for students who are able to be in Madison, again, to foster that problem solving, to foster that learning and discussion, and have discussion sections online, but synchronous for students who aren't able to join us. And so one of the silver linings, if there is such a thing, to the pandemic that we're experiencing is that we are thinking very, very hard and creatively and accelerating improvements in instructional methodologies. And so the pedagogy that we'll see in the fall is going to be different, and I believe very strongly, even better than it's been in the past.
Great. And so I think, keeping with the topic of instruction, but thinking about how these topics connect to. So Jake, thinking about health and instruction. I know that we've talked a little bit lately about how this is impacting our students, but of course we know our campus community includes advisors and faculty and staff. Folks are wondering, what if a professor becomes ill with COVID-19? How do we keep our employees safe and well too?
Thank you, Stephanie, and I appreciate that question. We've focused most of our effort thus far on our students, but our faculty and staff make up really the important part of our community as well. And so as a result of that, the same expectations that we've set out for our students, we've established and for our faculty and staff as well. So the same things around face coverings, physical distancing, regular hand washing, and again, the same level of access to testing is available to faculty and staff as well, so that we can, first of all, prevent and respond quickly to any situation that might develop. And then the other thing about the faculty and staff, in particular the health systems here within Madison and Dane County, they've been very active early on and have prepared themselves to respond to support anybody who does need additional supportive care while they're gone, if they should develop COVID and need that level of support. So I feel like we have a very robust system in place to support our faculty and staff should they need to be there. And there's also other environmental things that have been put in place to add additional protections. And so we're looking at the layout of the classrooms and the other spaces, as the provost referred to as well, to reduce that risk. So the prevention is our first step, and then providing additional testing. And then there's plenty of support for the health and well-being of our faculty and staff here in the community if they should need that.
Great, Jake, since I'm with you a minute, we've got a few more health questions coming in. So I've got a two-part question for you. And then Provost, I'm wondering if I could ask you about some innovation in that area in just a moment too. So Jake, to start with you, we have some questions about test results and face coverings. Could you talk about how quickly test results will come in? Will students know if they're negative or positive? What does that communication look like? And then if you could also talk about face coverings, are they provided to students? Are they required?
Sure. So in terms of test results right now, and what we anticipate is we'll be able to turn test results around very, very quickly, hopefully within a day or two at the most. And so we've got plenty of capacity identified and preparing to be able to get those test results back quickly. That's really important in terms of letting the students or the staff and faculty resume regular activities just as soon as possible. So we have a high level of confidence in that. In terms of face coverings, we will certainly ask students to come prepared with face coverings. But we also know that not every student might be able to do that, or that they might need additional support for that. So we'll have additional face coverings available in case somebody forgets one or needs an additional one as well. So we want to put as much support in place to make sure that people can comply with the public health protocols that we've set out in place.
Now, I wanted to add, so I really appreciate the question. Well, what happens if my loved one's instructor gets COVID? What's going to happen? And my first reaction to that is Badgers are incredibly resourceful. And so it's obviously, we hope very, very much that doesn't happen. We're taking a lot of affirmative steps to ensure that it doesn't happen. But if it does, people will pitch in. And we are asking our department chairs and our departments to plan for such contingencies as part of our fall planning. But my favorite example right now of our Badgers are resourceful is, imagine you're an instructor and you're supposed to be delivering lectures or engaging in discussions wearing face masks. I mean, I thought, that's a train wreck for any one of us who've spent a significant amount of time wearing a face mask. And so I went to the dean of the engineering college, a terrific colleague named Ian Robertson, and said, Ian, we've got to figure something out. And he said, I got it. And he goes to the design lab in engineering, and they're designing a face shield. And you kind of think, well, delivering a lecture through a face shield isn't going to be so great. And so they embedded a microphone in this face shield that then will play through your phone speaker that you can have clicked to your belt, and it projects pretty darn well. And so I thought that's pretty awesome. That's going to be the new Madison, fashion statement. But then someone told me, we're talking a lot to our epidemiologists and medical people, and Jake will say, face shield, that's pretty good, Carl. But, COVID's transmitted by droplets, and maybe the face shield isn't going to completely keep those droplets from getting out. And so our engineers then designed a separate version that essentially face shield, seals around the neck. And then you're saying, oh my gosh, that's going to get too hot. Has a small fan to recycle air within the face shield. And so when I say Badgers are resourceful, and we are focusing everything we have on this fall, it's not hyperbole. We're really trying to do that.
Absolutely. I think you said it best. Badgers are resourceful and innovative, and that makes me think too about other things that our Badgers are, and they're community-oriented, service-oriented, creative, and curious. And so I know we've talked about the academic experience and some of the logistics around health, but I guess to just step back and think about the whole student experience, Dr. Reesor, I'm wondering, so much, of course, of what makes Madison special is those out-of-class opportunities, whether that's the union or student groups. Could you talk about what we know, how they'll operate, and what that might look like?
Sure. Yeah, I love the engineering story, and what a great opportunity for our students to be able to learn from faculty like that who are truly changing the world. But yeah, you're right, Stephanie. The classroom experience is the most important thing, and we do a great job in that. But we also know that what makes a big difference for our students is their experience outside of the classroom, and to meet with other students and to get engaged and develop leadership skills and meet students who come from different backgrounds. It's a really important part of the university experience, and something I think we do phenomenally well at UW-Madison. So it's going to be different, you know, and not in the same way, but we're doing everything we can to follow the Dane County Public Health guidelines about restrictions for large groups and the events that we can do, but that doesn't mean we're not going to still do them. And they may be more in a hybrid situation, or they may be a little bit more restricted in terms of the numbers. But for example, we opened the terrace this just yesterday. Unfortunately, it rained all day for the first day, but the sun is shining today in Madison. And so I'm sure the terrace will be have a number of students that will be there, and community members that will be on the terrace. And again, not in the same numbers, so that we can keep everybody safe. So that, I think, is kind of the overall goal, is how can we take the magical, awesome UW-Madison experience and create it under these public health and safety guidelines, so that we're keeping people safe, but students are still having those same experiences. So for example, the new Nicholas Recreation Center is going to open this fall, and we're very, very excited about that. And I know students cannot wait to be in that space. And so it won't be as many students will be able to work out, but we're doing lots of fitness programs online and virtually. And then we'll have some opportunities for students to be able to use the Nicholas Recreation Center and to work out. Or if we can host some intramural events outside, again, in a safe way, that's what we're going to do. And we're working really, really hard this summer to create opportunities so that our students can still maximize the UW experience and still have all those great learning opportunities that happen outside the classroom. So we're really committed to doing that in a very safe manner.
Vice Chancellor Reesor, I'm going to stay with you and ask another question about student life. So we're receiving some questions about fraternity and sorority life specifically. What can you tell us about how Greek life might work this coming semester?
Yeah, so this is one of those areas that we're still working on. And so we're partnering with our student leaders and fraternities and sororities. So the ones, the IFC and Panhellenic sororities that do traditional recruitment, we will be working with our national organizations, and I expect that a lot of that recruitment will happen, but probably in a virtual setting, or maybe in a hybrid setting. Some of it will be virtual, maybe a little bit might be in person, but again, it cannot be done in the same way that we're used to. But we want to work with our student leaders and our national organizations to still maintain the quality of our fraternities and sororities. We also have historically African-American sororities and MPHC and multicultural sororities and fraternities and as well, excuse me. And so those I expect will continue to operate and exist like our other student organizations, but we'll just have to do it under safe guidelines. And so again, there's kind of two parts. There's, if they're living in the chapter houses, then we really encourage parents to have really strong conversations about the safety measures that are being done in those houses, because those will be decided by those organizations. We're going to partner with them. We're going to give them our guidelines. We're going to really request and encourage them to do everything in the safe way that we are doing and that Dane County Public Health is doing. But I think it's really behooves parents and students to make sure that those physical fraternities and sororities are taking the same precautions that we're doing in terms of living space, in terms of dining options, all of those kinds of questions that we're doing in our residence halls. We're going to ask and hope and encourage our fraternities and sororities that have houses to do the same kind of work. But then fraternity and sorority life, again, is not going to be the same. They cannot have the parties that they used to be able to have, or the large number of people that may come over and to socialize. And so there will be restrictions this year, and it'll be really, really important for our students, again, to step up, to do the right thing, to care about the greater good and the greater safety of public health for all of us, so that we can stay in place, so that we can continue doing the Smart Restart program that we're doing at UW-Madison. We're only going to be able to continue to do that if everybody steps up and makes some sacrifices, at least for a little bit, until we can get back to the regular situation.
Thanks, Vice Chancellor Reesor. And so we've got some clarifying questions coming in. So just to make sure folks know, fraternity and sororities are operated independently of UW, and we'll provide them with guidelines and best practices, but we know in some ways those students or those houses are autonomous as well. So just wanted to add that for folks who are asking. Vice Chancellor Reesor, I'm wondering if I could come back to you with another question. What about access to dining for off-campus students and access to libraries? Is there a way to access library resources remotely?
Yes, there is. And in fact, I probably might flip that question to my provost colleague, but yes, we are working at a lot of virtual services are being offered by our libraries. We also offer curbside service for our libraries. And then we do expect that our third spaces on campus will have reduced density, but we expect that we'll have some plans for those to be able to be open for the fall so that students have access to those spaces as well. Dining for off-campus students, I think, could be a little bit trickier because I know we're restricting our dining halls to our residence hall students only. And because of the density issues, we're only going to be able to serve our students. Same with our students in the rest halls, are not going to be able to have other guests come into those spaces either. So again, there'll be a number of different rules and expectations for our students in the residence halls and the dining halls so that we can keep everybody safe. We'll make sure that everybody knows those, and I know Housing's doing a number of these live sessions as well, so if you have specific questions about the res halls and the dining halls, I know they'll be able to address those as well. But there are a number of restaurants that are open, and a lot of restaurants that are offering curbside pickup or carry out. I guess that's what I mean. My family's certainly using those services, and so I think a lot of our students that live downtown and near other restaurants will have options for carry out food as well.
Yeah, and I expect we'll have our grab and go opportunities for students who are living off campus. And also, of course, we have our beautiful Madison robots, and
That's
I'm
right.
sure they will be busy as heck in the fall. For libraries, as Lori has said, the libraries have been working kind of around the clock since March to digitize as much of the material as they're able to and is legal to do. And so there's a lot of library materials available digitally, as well as reference librarians standing by to help students with their needs. As Lori mentioned, just a couple weeks ago, we started curbside pickup. And so faculty, staff, students are able to get materials that they need curbside, and relatively soon will be remote opening up for both limited access to the stacks of the library, and then access to study spaces as we engage with the smart restarts. So our librarians are very, very focused on supporting student success as well as the research mission of the university.
Great, thanks to you both. And just a reminder, even if you're coming on right now, welcome. We have about 10 or 15 minutes left. And Dr. Reesor, you brought up something I just wanted to add, that this is not the last time to get your questions answered. So if we're not able to address your questions today, we do know there's some specialized chats that'll be happening, whether that's through housing or fraternity and sorority life. We hope that we can connect with you all in forums like this again throughout the summer. So know too that we value your time today, and that we'll try to provide more spaces like this to do these Q&As. So just about 10 minutes left, but I do, Provost, want to come back to you for a question. So we are getting some parent inquiries about maybe they have a continuing student who's thinking about perhaps taking a gap year. Could you talk about what that looks like? Is there space held if they decide to do that? Or is there anything else they should consider?
Yeah, I think the main things would be to talk to the academic advisors or the departmental advisors or the cross-college advising service advisors that the student is working with, to talk about the plans, pros and cons of stopping out and reasons for that. So that's my main advice. Consult with the advisors that you have. Sorry. We're expecting more. I'm sorry. So but we don't have a specific. So one of the things that's remarkable about UW-Madison is our retention rate. That is, the fraction of students, freshman students who come back for their sophomore year is 96%. That's as high as any university in the country. And so we don't have a specialized program to say, oh, we think that X percentage of our students are not going to come back. We don't build that in. I recognize we're in very unusual circumstances. I would personally say, and again, I perfectly understand reasons why people might be interested in a gap year or stopping out for a year, but I personally would say education is more important now than it ever has been as we navigate the changes to society maybe happening around equity, diversity, and inclusion, as well as navigating the pandemic. But again, I recognize every family's situation may be different, and the way to make this as seamless as possible and to work the best it can for your situation is to speak to the relevant advisors who will know how to help with that process.
Thanks for that additional information, Provost. We just all could sense that there was more that you could share with us on that, so thank you. Wondering, we are getting some questions. Dr. Reesor, if you could talk a little bit about housing move-in. So you had mentioned that students won't be able to have guests throughout the semester, but we know move-in day is a special day for a lot of students and families. Can families be there to help their student?
Yeah, we will be sending more information out about exactly how this is going to work. So obviously, again, safety is our #1 priority. So we will have to restrict. I believe right now it'll be 2 folks. So, a lot of times move-in is a big family experience. You need all the hands and help that you can get. And it's just a huge celebration and a huge milestone for the entire family. So I think we're going to probably be restricting it to the student and 2 guests is what we're looking at right now. But again, and there will be scheduled times so that we can coordinate and make sure that the density is reduced and people are being as safe as possible during that move-in time. So we're looking at the week before classes start is probably having a whole week for students to move in, but you'll be given an assigned time, probably limited to 2 guests, and then we'll do everything that we can to ensure a safe move-in for that part of the process.
Great. Dr. Reesor, staying with you, I know we talked about this a little bit, but that we have some folks joining us now. We are getting questions just to kind of clarify, if we do have an international family or student who is uncertain if they'll be able to return to the US, are they able to take all of their courses online?
Yeah, so this is again where we're really working very closely with the federal government because we're so restricted on what students what international students are able to do under their visa requirements. So we're lobbying our federal colleagues as much as possible because these are unique circumstances. These are emergency circumstances. And so we're asking for flexibility so that our students have more choices and more options to finish their degree. We're so committed to our international students and really care a lot about their experience and know how difficult this is for them. So what we need is for folks to just continue to stay in touch with our International Student Services office. They have frequently asked questions on their website as well. As soon as we get clarity and more information, we will be sure to post that because we know that there are restrictions and then right now the visa requirements do not allow students to go completely online. So we are, as soon as we know information, then we'll be sure to push that information out to our international students and their families.
Stephanie, that not every course is going to be available remotely, but any student can enroll fully online if their circumstances require it. And we are committed to having a portfolio of courses that allows that student to make progress toward their degree goals.
That's very helpful. Thanks to you both for that information. I also know that in the comments, there's some additional questions about dining. So I just wanted to add that the Wisconsin unions, those dining facilities will be open to students. So those are operated by campus and they'll be available no matter where your student lives. And I also know that University Housing is considering, speaking of those robots, a delivery option for students who are living near the campus area. So we know that that's a question coming up in the comments, and the Parent and Family Program will plan to share more with you as we have those decisions, as well as housing. Oh, so I think we're at that time, about 5 minutes left. We hope you all have had as much fun as we have had today with our panelists. I'm wondering, panelists, if you could share any final comments or thoughts, advice or suggestions. Dr. Reesor, could I turn it over to you?
Sure. Obviously, a lot of things are changing every single day, and just know that we're doing our best to keep communication lines open as much as possible. So we want to make sure that you know what's going on, that to address your questions, because when you don't have information, we know that there's stress, either stress for you or stress as a parent or stress for your students. I also just want to take a moment to acknowledge things that are going on in our world, and certainly in the United States, and to know how committed UW-Madison is to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we are taking all those considerations as we're making decisions about the pandemic. We're certainly looking at the impact that it has on other communities, because we know that there's been disparate impacts on communities of color. And so we're trying to make sure that we're being thoughtful in how we do our work, and also to be transparent in the dialogues in the work that we need to do going forward. And we have work to do as an institution, but I hope that everybody knows how committed we are, and that we care about every single student at this institution. And we absolutely believe that every student deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. So whether that's during this COVID situation or when COVID is over, those are really, really important values that we're going to still maintain and strive to actually do better. So the bottom line is we're here. We're here for the students. We're here for you as parents. We have a lot of great resources and staff and faculty who care deeply about the experience of our students, both inside and outside the classroom, and just ask for your patience. And again, to keep open communication. We'll do everything that we can to keep communicating with you. But if you think of something that we might have missed, please send those questions to some of the places that Stephanie had provided earlier, and I'm sure she'll provide again. So thank you so much for participating today. We really greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. I just want to echo those sentiments, and we know that this is a fluid situation and it will continue to evolve, but know that we're committed to communicating with you, to making decisions that are in the best interest of your students' health and well-being. And as stated earlier by Vice Chancellor, we know that parents and families are partners in their students' success, and we feel so much gratitude for all that you do to support your students. It's why UW-Madison created our office, the Parent and Family Program, because we just value your voice, and we value all you do as supporters and mentors to your students. Again, this is not the last time that we'll be in contact. We're always available to you. Our office, the Parent and Family Program, we do have staff. We're working remotely, but we're here to answer your questions and are doing so every day. You can email us at parent@uwmad.wisc.edu with any questions, things that you think of after, things that this conversation has brought up in your mind, or maybe questions we didn't have time to address. Our next e-newsletter goes out mid-July, so look for that, and we'll be sharing the latest. Check back to our Smart Restart website, and just know how valued that you are and how much we appreciate your time together today. So I'm wondering, Provost Jake, is there anything else you want to add or close us out with?
Let me make one really quick comment, and that is, I've been here, as I said, over 30 years. Our students are absolutely extraordinary. And so UW-Madison, as you heard, is a very, very special place. And we're incredibly grateful by the trust you've shown in us. And we take this responsibility of stewarding the education and this transition to adulthood, so to speak, incredibly seriously. Since March, we've been in extraordinarily challenging circumstances. This is my first year as provost. I said, what could it be? And a global pandemic, deal with that. But our colleagues have really stepped up in ways that inspire, and we are going to do everything we can to create a world-class experience for the students that we serve come this fall and the next academic year. And we're excited about the challenge. As I said, Badgers are resourceful, and thank you so much for the trust that you place in us.
Thanks, Provost. Jake, any closing words from you?
Just to reiterate what you've already heard, and so hopefully you've got a sense for all the work and effort that's been put into place to provide a healthy and safe space for your students while they're here on the UW campus. There's a variety of resources available. University Health Services is going to be available both virtually and in person. So if you need additional support while they're here, please encourage your students to take full advantage of those resources. Know that we're all here to help support you with your success during the time that you're here on our campus.
Absolutely, Jake. We really are all in this together, and just want to thank you again for your time. Know that we'll be in touch with more answers and want to field your questions. Just a reminder, Parent and Family Program is here. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great afternoon.
On Wisconsin.